It was an excellent game that pretty much had everything. Big picture, it now puts Inter level on points with Juve at the top of the table. Juve losing on Saturday against Verona. Meanwhile, Lazio just 1 point behind now the top two after their victory against Parma. Robbo, it's going to be some title race. Are you still on Juve?
Just about. They're not playing well. Sarri hasn't certainly got his ideas across. They talk about this Sarri ball. I've certainly not seen it at Juventus. They're playing with no fluency. But I just think on their day, they're still the best side. I think they'll be more consistent come now to the end of the season than maybe Inter and Lazio. They've got Ronaldo back to somewhere near his best. I think Sarri needs to get Dybala back in the side because I think he's a better option at the moment than Higuain, who's coming too short. But it's in midfield where they've got one or two problems. Some of the new players that Juventus have brought in, like Rabiot, like Ramsey, haven't really performed. But I still think if you look at it from now to the end of the season, they're going to have a bit more consistency. They're probably going to win all their home games, and I think they'll win the title.
Boys, how much of a problem is it that you're Juventus and you're relying on Cristiano Ronaldo to such an extent? These stats are extraordinary. 20 goals compared to Dybala, who is then the next top scorer with 5, along with Higuain. And we saw it on Saturday, didn't we? This over-dependence, everything trying to get to Ronaldo. Could this bite them in the bum?
Well, the strangest thing is, if this was anybody else, we would be saying there's no way Juventus are going to win the league if they're just relying on another. The problem the rest of the league has is Cristiano Ronaldo. The guy can handle it. The guy can carry the team on his shoulders. So clearly you don't want to be relying on one player, but whilst he's fit and healthy, he can carry them all the way to the title.
It's a 35-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo, though.
Yeah, and the thing that would worry me looking at that is and Robbo mentioned it, is the lack of goals, 3 for Pjanic, who, you know, normally is a bit of a playmaking, deep-lying kind of midfielder. And there's no other midfielders at this stage of the season more than halfway are even close to getting double figures. That's a concern because, you know, you look at the other scorers, Dybala, Higuain, you're expecting goals, but when you're not getting it from the middle of the park, and we saw Frankie de Jong get his first goal for Barcelona yesterday, it's so important. Frank Lampard did it for years at Chelsea. Steven Gerrard did it at Liverpool. You have to support your strikers with goals from the middle of the park. It's one of the key components to having that success, and that's an area where they're not operating very well at the moment.
Robert, what's happened to Sarri ball? It just seems to be get the ball to Ronaldo.
It certainly does. He's tried to play with a front three and he's tried to then go with 2 centre-forwards and 1 in behind. And the player that's always been playing in behind hasn't done well enough. Dybala did it well for a couple of games. He then was left out the side. Bernardeschi's come in and not done well enough. Douglas Costa, who I thought was magnificent when he was playing for Bayern Munich, but really hasn't done it for Juventus. He's had an injury earlier on in the season. Then the other 2 midfield players I talked about, Rabiot is not scoring goals. Ramsey's not getting forward, or when he does get forward, he's not getting the right sort of finish, and he's really been discarded, I think, by Sarri. There's no fluency. I think everything revolves around Ronaldo, and the other players are looking to pass to him when sometimes they should be taking another option. And that's the problem that Sarri's got. He wants to play a slightly different way, but Ronaldo is dictating to him, as probably he should do, as by far and away the best player.
Meanwhile, we've been so critical of Inter this season. When Juventus have given them chances to catch them at the top of the table, they've dropped the ball. They did almost for the first half yesterday, but that second half performance, could that be the spark that would get them really going now in the second half of the season?
I'm not quite sure whether I'm happier about the second half spark or worried about what happened in the first half. You know, this is a team that, to me, looked as though from the very get-go, they thought, we're better than this team. It's just going to happen. And, of course, it went the other way around. Milan were by far the better side. So that to me is worrying, that if they're going to turn up and play against the big teams in the big games and actually play, what are they going to do with games that they're supposed to win? That's why Juventus have been winning the league year in, year out, because they win all the games they're supposed to win. Inter Milan, for me, haven't reached that stage yet where they're stepping on the field and I'm thinking, this team's definitely going to win today. I don't think they're... For 90 minutes, I don't think they're consistent enough.
For as great a, and we talked about it yesterday, for as great a response as it was, I think it's slightly concerning that although Milan, since the new manager's gone in, had a bit of time, and Ibrahimovic has gone in there. They've been better. By their standards, they're a pretty mediocre side, right, in Italy at the moment. And they made it Inter Milan look poor.
Yeah.
And it was worrying how easy they were able to do that and how deep his back three stroke back five got, and how with an extra man in the middle of the park he still got dominated. And then there was a huge gap up to Lukaku and Alexis Sanchez, certainly in the first half. That was concerning to me.
Yeah, a 39-year-old was the best player on the field in the first half. That has to be a worry if you're Inter Milan, that they actually would let that happen. Because there's no way coming into this game, they hadn't figured out, if there's one guy we need to sort out, it's going to be him. Instead, they let him dictate to them. And the truth of the matter is, you know, I'm sure Conte did have a go at his team at half-time, but for the first 5 minutes, there wasn't a huge change, in my opinion. It was Brozovic who took it on himself to score a worldie, and that was the spark. That's what changed the game.
Robbo, is the glass half full or empty for Inter after that win?
Half empty, I would say. I agree with the guys in the studio. Absolutely right. There's inconsistency with Inter Milan from one half to another, and it's happened many, many times this season. A lack of intensity sometimes when they're closing the ball down. When it becomes urgent, when they're desperate, suddenly they play higher up the field, they press the ball, they get it into their front two, start to link up with each other. I mean, Martinez was a bit of a miss in that first half, but Sanchez did okay, but he's really worked well with Lukaku. There's a lack of intensity in certain periods of games for Antonio Conte, and that can't be the case if you're trying to win the title, because at some point they're going to come a cropper and lose a game they need to win, and that's why Juventus are still the best side in Serie A.
Zlatan, 38 years of age.
Beg your pardon.
40. He's 40. but look, it's not a perfect scenario for Conte, but at the end of the day, he's put them in a position, along with Lazio, whether it's been pretty, inconsistent, dull at times, he's done so far what he's been brought in to do.
Yep.
And that's put them in a position to see if they can go toe-to-toe for the second half of the season. Napoli tried it under Sarri. It worked for a long period and then it fell apart right at the end. We're going to find out whether he's got enough about him in his squad to be able to cope with Juventus, who have got the best squad in Serie A by far, between now and May.
Now, you've got to say, being able to turn around and bring somebody like Eriksen on, that tells you that they're in a position where they can make a run for this title. When you can bring on him and he makes a difference. Even Moses made a difference making the fourth goal. So when you've got people on the sideline and you can come in, you know are going to do something and change a game, again, that'll push them towards the title.
And of course, the scorer of the fourth goal, your best friend Lukaku.
Yeah.
Scoring in a big game. The reason Inter are in this title race is a lot down to the 17 goals that Lukaku has scored this season.
Yeah, no question. Listen, you can't argue with his goals. You can argue with some of his other play, but you can't argue when it comes down to numbers. And yes, no question. You know, you're talking about relying on somebody. We're talking about Ronaldo, Juventus relying on him. There's no question. They rely on Lukaku for putting the ball in the back of the net, that's for sure.
Meanwhile, Robbo, of course, Lazio rely on Ciro Immobile. Lazio with a win at the weekend. Can they win this title?
No, I don't think they can, because they haven't got a big enough squad. They had to make one or two changes because of suspensions at the weekend. They still put in a decent performance. They were pressed all the way by Parma. They do rely on Immobile, because Caicedo can score goals as well. Correa, when he comes on, can be a dangerous player. But I don't think they're quite good enough. They've got a decent back three. They know the system, but they're playing well above what they should be playing. He's done a brilliant job in Inzaghi, but it'll end up with them being third in the table, I think. So
Robert going for Juventus still.
Yeah, I'm still sitting with Juventus just because of their experience. But as I said yesterday, Sarri doesn't want to be the man that when the train comes off the track, and that's a big pressure on him. So he's going to have to figure this out. He kind of figured it out at Chelsea at the end of the season and turned that ship around when people were talking about him getting the sack at one point. Now we can see if he can do it here with balancing this squad. But I'm just sticking with Juve.
Got to stick with Juve. I mean, it's classic, isn't it? All we've done all season is talk about the way they play and they don't look this and they don't look that. Guess what? They're sat at the top of the league. And they haven't kicked the ball yet. I think I'll stay with them.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.